Are indeed back. Welcome back to the Duke Nukem Forever podcast. Now, the third and short overtime podcast. It's been a few weeks since we saw you all. It's good to be here again. But we apologise for our absence. A few of us have been away doing some busy stuff. Bones has just become a dad, so congratulations, Bones. Mark's had his missus move in, so commiserations, Mark.
I
chucked her out already.
I've already gone. Tory government, and that's gone all right. So, and I don't know where Jordan's been, but we've had trouble locating him for about 6 weeks now. But it's good to have you back, Jordan.
Yeah, I turned into a teacher for about a month. It was soul destroying.
Well, tonight might be soul destroying as well. Welcome back to the big draft print. No, that's not it. The NFC West. We're breaking down the NFC West tonight. We are, of course, sponsored by our wonderful sponsors, Amazon Prime, and we're gonna. With me, I've got to my right, I've got Jordan, who is going to be talking about the Seahawks. Below me on the screen is Bones, who is going to be talking about the Rams, and of course, in the bottom right, we have Mark, who is going to be talking about the Cardinals. So that leaves me with my team, the 49ers. So yeah, we're gonna be talking the NFC West tonight, and as usual, we'll just do a quick round the 3-4 of us. What do you think of when you think of the NFC West? Let's start with you, Jordan. We haven't heard your voice on this podcast in a while. What do you think of when you think of the NFC West?
I think for me personally, I think of good. Maybe not all the teams and stuff, and then in different time periods, but good defenses. Especially in my case, watching the Legion of Boom back in the day. But I think you see good defense, you see different offense compared to other, like divisions. The West Coast is like used a lot over this side, obviously, and just competitive football. I know we say that a lot of the divisions are quite competitive, but I'm honestly not being biased. I just think this division is so competitive at times, and the games are so tight. Even when we were just talking off air before, even when San Francisco were like at the lowest before the Super Bowl run, still made games competitive in this division. And it's like I said, I'm not being biased. I just think it's a fun division to watch. If you're neutral or just it's just fun. It's just a great division.
Yeah, definitely. I think there's a lot to be said for that. Mark, you're in the other conference in the West. What do you make of the NFC West? What does it mean to you as a division?
Currently, at the moment, when I look at it, it's like a division which is led by really young, innovative head coaches. Take aside Pete Carroll. You've got Sean McVay and you've got Kyle Shanahan. And in amongst that as well, I suppose you've got Cliff Kingsbury. Who are young, offensive-minded, NFL coaches. The McVay-Shanahan one is really interesting because they're such good friends and they work together at Washington for such a long period. And I think if you were to speak to people in the NFL or you were to speak to some fans who maybe were a little bit more, in depth on the NFL outside their teams, and you said, who are the real innovative minds of the NFL currently at this moment in time? I'm guessing that most people would probably say Kyle Shanahan and Sean McVay. They're two very young, promising coaches. And when I think of the NFC West, I automatically think of them too. I automatically think of just how, if the two of them stay in this division for a while, just how exciting their matchups between the 49ers and the Rams, both on the West Coast, can be, over the next 5 or 6 years.
Yeah, there have been some really good games between the two. Even in the last couple of years, both teams kind of developing. I'm intrigued to see what it's like going forwards. Bones, obviously, will not spoil your bit too much, but you're taking the Rams tonight largely because the Rams have just taken your old quarterback Stafford. But what do you reckon to the NFC West? Where are you? Where are you as far as that division goes?
I mean, Jordan hit it pretty well, didn't he? It's the West Coast offense division. Surprise, surprise. The NFC West is the West Coast offense division. There's a lot of thrown balls. I sometimes when you first said it, I thought if you've got two quarterbacks, you don't have one good quarterback. Was the first thing I thought about the NFC West, but that's a long time ago. That's a long time ago. But I mean, No, yeah, you're right. There's two very young, very close, innovative head coaches in this division. Mark said it's a high passing, high power offense division. Yeah, it's good fun to watch. It's not something I'm as familiar with because of the time zone difference. I don't watch much of the games, but yeah, good division, fun division.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to discussing it tonight. Obviously, this has been my division since I started watching football as a 49ers fan. In my lifetime, we've always been in the NFC West. And to be honest, it's always been a competitive division. Even, I think Jordan hits on it, even when teams, the Rams have had a spell of not being too good. We obviously have. Cardinals traditionally haven't been particularly good, but they've always been able to take games off each other. And I think the interdivisional clashes are some of the best games you'll see. The 49ers Seahawks games, be they in the regular season or the playoffs, some of the best games I've ever seen. So I think we're looking at a division with four strong teams in it, really, and I think it's going to be a tough one to call tonight. If you're watching, strap yourself in for a couple of hours because I think we might be here for a while. But we'll kick things off. We got through the intro pretty quick, so that should help us a bit. Let's kick things off with the Arizona Cardinals, and the Arizona Cardinals spokesperson tonight is the Geordie preacher, Mark. So come on, what you got for Arizona, Mark?
Well, I was quite pleased to get Arizona because, first of all, I'm a big Kyler Murray believer. I watched Kyler Murray in college, really loved him, as a college prospect. Loved what he brought the game, wasn't put off by his height or anything like that, and was really excited. With him going to the West Coast, I thought this is going to suit the way he plays. He's going into the NFC West, which is going to be West Coast football. He's going to be playing in good temperatures. He's going to, he's on the better side of the conferences. And to be honest with you, he was Rookie of the Year. I would argue that Josh Jacobs should have won it that year. But, quarterback heavy league, he won Rookie of the Year, Offensive Rookie of the Year. And in last year, he was doing really well. He He was second in rush yardage, only to Lamar Jackson. I think he threw... let me get the stats up, but I think he threw 26 touchdowns, rushed for another 11 touchdowns, 37 touchdowns allocated from one person, and for all intents and purposes, I'm still excited about what Kyler Murray can be. Has he cracked that top 10 position yet? I probably wouldn't say so. But he's only had 2 years in the NFL, and I think it doesn't take a mad genius to see where his ceiling is. Or if this is his floor, God only knows what his ceiling is, maybe. I'd probably say he's a fringe top 10 player at the moment. What I am concerned about is Cliff Kingsbury, the guy who they brought in, who drafted Kyler Murray. And of course, recruited him as well at college and stuff like that. And he was a big fan of Kyler Murray. And he took the bold decision of trading away Josh Rosen to draft Kyler Murray #1. I'd have done it myself. And I guess the only reason why he's got time at this moment in time is because of that decision. Is that he's probably viewed as maybe the best man for Kyler Murray moving forward. At least by the organizational, I'm not entirely sure he is. I don't know what it is with the Arizona offense, but it just didn't seem to click. And, especially when Cliff Kingsbury's come from this air raid offense in college and stuff like that, it just seemed that they ran out of ideas in the second half of last year. Kyler Murray got dinged up a little bit. He was probably being asked to run too much. He hasn't got the frame of some quarterbacks. He's only 5'10", which has been well talked about. And really, you kind of don't want to be doing too many designed run plays for him. You kind of want to be relying on his legs when the plays break down, I guess is what I'm trying to say. He has got an astronomical arm, and I would just be trusting him to use it. I'll give you a synopsis of what I mean by how the Arizona Cardinals offense struggled. So when it came to the NFL last year, Arizona's total offense generated just over 6,000 yards, 6,153 to be precise. And that was good for the 6th best yardage offense in the NFL. The problem is how it translated to points. For example, that only translated to 410 points with an average of like 25 points a game, which put them way down into the teens, like for actual points generated by an offense. See, when you think about all those yards that they're generating, they're just not punching the ball home. There's something breaking down. And when you think about how many touchdowns were either on the arm or the legs of Kyler Murray, it kind of gives you a little bit of an outlook at just how out of balance this offense is. They haven't really got a running back, although I am excited by Chase Edmonds. I do think that Chase Edmonds is a good running back. I'm looking forward to seeing him in a bigger role. The problem is that in this system, what Keith Kingsbury's got, Kyler doesn't line up under centre. He lines up pretty much exclusively in shotgun, which means if you're running back and you're being given the ball out of shotgun, you've almost got 4 or 5 yards to make up before you even hit the line of scrimmage. And then you're going to go beyond the line of scrimmage, to get another 4 or 5 yards. So you're talking about a 10-yard run you're expecting when you're handing a shotgun handoff to your running back. It's not really designed for the running game. Kenyon Drake was in there doing it last year. What I do think that Edmonds does is he's shifty and he's small. And he's shone. He was actually arguably better than Kenyon Drake last year in a lesser role. The most like him because he's going to be their number 1 back this year. Although they have brought in James Conner, but I'm not too sure how that's going to figure itself out. Surprisingly, last year, do you know what it was that kept them in a lot of games? Their defense. Hans Joseph came across, the ex-Denver Broncos head coach and Miami Dolphins defensive coordinator. He came across and actually did a really good job of their defense. He dialed up the blitz lots. They had really good blitz numbers despite losing Chandler Jones. And he got more out of that defense than I think anybody was really expecting. I guess what we now have to see what Keith Kingsbury was brought in for, and that's an actual offense. They've got some interesting pieces, which they've chosen in the draft the last 2 years. Zaven Collins out of Tulsa is an athletic marvel. I would let him rush the passer from the linebacker position. And of course, I got Isaiah Simmons the year before. I think much of their defense is going to be how they use those 2 players. How are those 2 players deployed? Because both of them are real athletically gifted players. And I think that in the right scheme, if they've got somebody like Vance Joseph who can be creative, I think that they could have 2 very interesting second-level players. They've got one of the best all-purpose safeties in the NFL in Budda Baker. And in a conference where teams do like to run the ball and the pass is set up on the run, having a safety like Budda Baker who's so sharp at coming down and hitting the ball carrier and also good in coverage can't go underestimated. I think he might be the most crucial player on this Arizona defense. When I think of a playmaker, I'm thinking about him at the back end, just how good he is in coverage, but most importantly, how he doesn't let anybody down in run support. Because he's going to be up against Kittle one play, and then he's going to be, expected to get down and hit somebody on the run play the next play. You know what I mean? You need to have a high skill set to be able to do that. But Budda Baker can fortunately do it. They brought in J.J. Watt in the off-season. What's J.J. Watt got left in the tank at this stage? I'm not too sure. There's a big question mark around that. They lost Hassan Reddick, the Panthers, and Hassan Reddick stepped in and really did a lot of the work and got a lot of the sacks when Chandler Jones went out injured, and he's now no longer there. So how are they going to be losing a player like him, albeit with Chandler Jones coming back? Patrick Peterson, who's been a fixture there for 10 years or more. A shutdown corner, at least in his earlier part of his career, is no longer there. They've got Byron Murphy, the kid out of Washington, who I liked a few years back. How's he progressing? Is he ready? Is it Byron Murphy? Am I thinking the right player, George?
Yeah, Byron Murphy.
Yeah, I thought it was. Yeah, and they got him in the second round last year. That's him, Byron Murphy. I really like them, but I don't know how he's progressing. There's some questions there because he's going to be expected to fill a bigger role. Stepping into Patrick Peterson's boots, so to speak, cleats. They brought in AJ Green, which was an odd one, but I think at the very least it gives Kyler a really good, dependable red zone target. And I think that's what AJ Green is at this stage of his career, a jump ball specialist red zone target. Obviously, opposite, we've got D-Hop, who's just fantastic, like top 3 wide receiver on the game. I'd probably argue that Davante Adams is maybe the only wide receiver who's better than him currently in the NFL. Maybe Brown at Tennessee. I would argue a case for either of those two above him. But D-Hop's in the top 3, either 2 or 3, depending, maybe 2 in my book, behind Davante Adams. Yeah, so they've got the pieces there and they've got talent there. I think it's kind of like now for Cliff Kingsbury. I'm not too sure if he'll last the whole season if they start off slow, if truth be told. I don't know how long he's going to get. But my guess is that his seat is really, really, really very, very warm. It should be hot to touch. One thing I do want to touch on is Rondale Moore. I don't think anybody knows, is within doubt of just how much I like that lad as a footballer. At Purdue, he was a one-man offense, if truth be told. He's electric with the ball in his hands. And given the amount of screens that Arizona threw last year, I think they threw the most amount of screens in the NFL last year. Watch out for Rondale Moore as a game breaker on those screens and ins and around. I really hope we get to see more of Cliff Kingsbury's offense this year, because so far it hasn't really been it. I think they're hoping that Rondale Moore gives them what Andy Isabella feel to. When they drafted Isabella, I think they thought he's our gadget guy, but he's never really seemed to hit that. And I think that's what Rondale Moore will be. I feel like I've covered a lot. I'm quite happy to shut up there and let you dissect it and ask us some questions. But yeah, the arrow should be further up for Arizona, but I kind of feel like Cliff Kingsbury's bringing them down.
I'll ask that then as the opening question, just because I think I've said the same thing both privately. I'll say it on here as well. My biggest issue with Arizona is the head coach. I don't like. There's issues with the roster. I'm not as bullish on the JJ Watt thing as some people are. Don't know how much he's got left in the tank. If you can get something out of him, yeah, okay, I can see it. AJ Green to me is shot. I'm not sure why they brought him in, but
compensatory picks. I think they're hoping to get some compensatory picks out of these late, these late veterans that they keep on picking up.
Could well be. But here's a question mark. If Arizona is in a different division, do you think they would have a better shot at winning it? Because I feel like the biggest issue with Arizona is they're a good team, but not quite good enough here. Like, out of the 4 teams, I think they're probably the weakest just because of Kingsbury, really, more than anything else.
Do you know what is as well? They've got to win games in their division, John. That I think I think they haven't beaten the Rams in something like, I think they've lost the last 8 games against the Rams that they've played. I remember watching the game earlier on this week, and they were talking about that. It was Arizona against the Rams, and we were talking about just how many games they'd lost on the spin against them, and they lost that game as well. Look, at some point, if you want to win the division, you've got to start beating the teams that are in it. I know that they beat your team last year, John, but that was an injury-decimated 49ers team.
Yeah, and also, they split the series. I think we beat them in 1 game, and we should never have won that game, really, in all honesty. It's a good point, and I think me and Jordan talked about it off air, and I'll say the same again here. I feel like one of the issues with I feel like I've got a vendetta against Cliff Kingsbury, but I'm just going to say it for what it is. When you look at the other 3 coaches in the division, you've got Shanahan, McVay, and Carroll. All of them have been to the playoffs and been in pressure situations and won in pressure situations. Kingsbury hasn't done that yet. Now, it's hard to do that when you're not in that position, but he doesn't have a track record there, and I think that's why. I think that's my concern with them, really, as a team overall.
Do you know? I kind of think that when they hired Kingsbury, they were trying to find their McVeigh, or they were trying to find their Shanahan, and I feel like they've swung and missed. I think they went out, and it's a bit like when we got Lincoln Riley. You know, like, we'll go get this young coach from the college game, you know, like, who's doing amazing things and all that kind of stuff, you know. Sorry, Lane Kiffin. You know, like, we'll go do this stuff, you know, we'll go get this young innovative coach and all that stuff, because they're trying to copy what the other two teams are doing in their division. One's got McVay, one's got Shanahan. Let's us try to get our young mind. And I just feel like they've swung and they've missed on this one. I just don't think Kingsbury's the guy, and I'll be surprised if he lasts the season.
I think that's it. Like, it's a difficult situation to come into because he's in a division that's very competitive, and they will be expecting results. You know, Kyle is going into another year. He looks pretty well developed at this stage. They're paying Hopkins good money, even though the owners are generally quite cheap in Arizona. They are paying Hopkins quite a bit. They've paid to bring in all these veterans. It's going to be interesting to see what happens there. I struggle to make a case for them. Really, overall, I think they're a good side, but I think when you look at the pieces they've got less pieces than everybody else, and a large part of that is game management and coaching. Where are you on them, Jordan? What do you think of the Cardinals?
I'm pretty much the same, really. I think like they started off well last season and put themselves in a good position, but they split the series with us as well. And one of them games, I think we were about 17 points up or something like that, and we kind of threw it away, you know, like later on, and we ended up winning. But I just look at the players that they brought in, you know, like maybe Mack's right, hit it on the head, looking for some I can't speak, pickups, you know, later on. But even if they give them a little bit more, you players like Malcolm Butler that they brought in. You mentioned JJ Watt and AJ Green. With Rodney Hudson they picked up this year as well. You know, even if they give them a little bit more, is it going to? I don't think it's enough to see them over the line. You know, from where they were last year. So for me, I just think they'll be in a similar position as last year at best. To be honest with you, I think you mentioned it before. Cliff Kingsbury in the big games, he just doesn't seem like the guy who can make the right decisions to get them over the line when in close games when they could be winning. I know they had the Hail Murray against the Bills, but when stuff like that, when does stuff like that happen normally? Yeah, I just think I think it'll be a new man in charge next year. To be honest with you, I think they'll move on and it sounds crazy to say, but there could be a mini rebuild there starting next year.
Yeah, because obviously if a new coach comes in, they're going to want their own system, maybe their own players. I feel like although Murray was the obvious talent, I feel like he was very much a Kingsbury pick, really, the kind of guy who would want to run his offense. So could be an interesting one. That Bones, you're normally the positive one out of the four of us, and I know you've spoke up quite well about some teams in the past, apart from the Eagles. You got anything good to say about the Cardinals? Something positive?
I mean, I agree with Mark. I'm a fan of Kyler Murray, despite his height. I know he's a controversial quarterback in terms of there's a lot of different opinions about him. Like, he's too small to play the position. He's not this, that, and the other. But I agree. I think he's proven time and time again that it doesn't matter. Like, what his height is irrelevant. The guy plays. Like, the Cliff Kingsbury point's a valid one, isn't it? Really, realistically, like, this team, it has pieces. It shouldn't struggle, but there's something not right. Like Mark said, the defense especially, I really like the look of. When you look at it on paper, like their starting lineup for defense, like assuming JJ Watt has still got stuff left in the tank and plays like JJ Watt, then that's a pretty good defense. You know, you've got JJ Watt, Isaiah Simmons, Zaven Collins this year in the draft, Buda Baker, like Malcolm Butler. I mean, there's a few names here that are good players, like, or were good players, like, depending on what you look. I mean, I think the defense looks nice, but I'm trying to come up with positives. No, I think the head coach situation is a problem, and I do agree that if they start off slow with the lineup they have, if they start off slow, Cliff Kingsbury might not have a job much longer.
Yeah, it's an interesting one, isn't it? I feel like the defense has been built with the other teams in the division in mind. You think about people like Baker to cover Kittle and even Collins and people like that. In some respect, they're looking for big athletes, aren't they? It definitely feels like that to me. But yeah, it's an interesting one.
I think obviously. Sorry, I'm not saying it's going to change the fortunes, but losing Chandler Jones, I think he only played 6 games in it last year. Were a big disappointment from last season. I'm not saying he's going to put him into a winning situation, but he's a fantastic player, Chandler Jones.
Yeah, he's a really good player. I think there's like we said, there's a lot of good players on this team. It's just whether they can fit it all together. And I think if you looked at it realistically right now, you would say probably not. Mark, I think you've got one more point you want to make, so I'll chuck over to you. Go on.
I want to leave Arizona fans feeling a bit more positive. So I've got a nice little point for you. One, you've got one of my steals in the NFL draft. You got a steal. My surname's Steele, so I'm coining that. Steele. You got a steal. T. Gowan, who you got from UCF. Jordan, tell you, I talk about corners and I watch corners so much. I could have like a corners give me wood. Like they're the only position that has to run backwards when everybody else is running forwards. They have to be able to react in that position. You have to be able to flip your hips at speed. You have to be able to judge the flight of the ball and be able to turn your head at the right time to make a play on it. All of that makes cornerbacks superhuman. They're the most athletically gifted position in the NFL, and it's the hardest position to play. I saw some of those attributes in T. Gowan when I was watching tape in the summer on Draft Prospects. To get him in the 6th round was criminal. Yeah. I think that he could be somebody who might make an impact midway through the season if Malcolm Butler, who's at the tail end of his career, doesn't cut the mustard, or like if Byron Murphy is kicking inside the nickel. I think T. Gowan's a name to keep an eye out for. And also Chase Edmonds. I'm going to sling a bet in here early. But I was thinking about good bets. If I was a betting man, I would put a little bit of money on Chase Edmonds to be all-purpose yardage leader in this entire division. When I think about what the San Francisco 49ers do, running back by committee, the Rams are similar, though they've just lost one, not to spoil it. In Chris Carson is really not giving much in the receiving game. Chase Edmonds is going to have the opportunity here, both running the ball and catching the ball. And I think he might have a sneaky big season. Stash him away on your fantasy drafts. Pick him up if you can. But maybe just float a little £5 note on Chase Edmonds being an all-purpose yardage leader for this NFC West.
That's an interesting call. I think he's a really good player, and I think they will be quite reliant on him in that role. So I think it's not a bad bet. I wish to say that the Third and Short podcast do not endorse gambling. Gamble responsibly. We have one of the hosts of the other podcasts who may have a slight gambling problem, so we don't want to.
We've endorsed gambling on every single episode we've done where we do a bet at the end.
Late, but I'm trying to shut the door now. I'm just trying to get
that ship has sailed.
No, I think it's a good point. Has anyone got any more on Arizona?
Nah.
Okay. Well, I guess we'll move on to the 49ers then, which is my turn to talk. This is obviously a little bit strange tonight. We've got a 49ers fan in me and a Seahawks fan in Jordan. And to cap things off, I'm from Lancashire and he's from Yorkshire. So we got a nice rivalry thing going tonight. So it'd be good to see what we think of each other's teams as well as our own. But evaluating the 49ers is bloody difficult. And the reason I say that is because how do you evaluate this team against last year's team? We had a ridiculous run last year. I think at one stage we had the most salary cap money on injured reserve in NFL history or something ridiculous like that. I've never seen anything like it. We had 3 players get injured in back-to-back plays in the Jets game. Bosa, Solomon Thomas, and I forget who the other guy was. It was a strange year to be a 49ers fan last year. I ended up coming out of the season feeling quite optimistic, despite the fact that we were pretty much out of the playoff. The stupid thing is, I think we could have been in the playoffs. We lost 2 or 3 games. The Eagles sticks out in particular to me as a game that we lost that we really, really shouldn't have lost. And it was largely down to just basically running out of players. We had no depth on the interior line. We were starting Nick Mullins at quarterback. These are things that bring a season down. You could do it 2 or 3 games. You can't do it for half a season. So going into the off season, but I remember being on this podcast when I first appeared on the other podcast. I said there's more to do with the 49ers than a quarterback, and I still kind of stand by that to an extent. What we did well though in free agency was bring back some players that I didn't think we'd bring back. So we brought back the likes of Jason Verrett, Jaquiski Tartt, DJ Jones at nose tackle. We managed to get these guys back in the building, and I didn't really think that was going to be possible. I expected a bit of almost a transitional year in a way, because there's a few guys, particularly at DB, which I'll come on to in a sec. We haven't got a ton of talent there, and Richard Sherman obviously left us. If we'd lost Verrett as well, I think it would have plunged us into the market maybe at 12 for a corner. We were looking at guys like JC Horn. I think I might have even said that on one of the pods that we did. But because we were able to bring all those veterans back, and I think we did really well in free agency, I have to say that. I think what we did well was keep a core of a team together that perhaps we're expecting to lose. I think most of the time you get a couple of years window. Obviously, we went to the Super Bowl 12 months back, and then we had a tough season, and it felt like it was going to be right. Okay, well now it's phase 2. There was guys like, obviously the big comeback was Trent Williams. I think that was a question mark, certainly for me, especially when the money started going up. I didn't really think we'd be able to keep him. We obviously did. I think that is a huge get. The big signing for me, though, and it can go either way, and it's largely because of the age, is Alex Mack. We've been lacking a top-quality centre for about a year and a half. We had Weston Richburg we signed him from the Giants, and he was pretty good, especially in the Super Bowl run year, but unfortunately I think he tore his Achilles, or he's had a few major injuries in his career. Anyway, missed all of last season with another one, and now he's retired. So we had a pretty glaring hole at centre all last year. As I said, our interior pass pro was terrible. So we brought in Alex Mack, and Alex Mack is a great player, and he's played well for Shanahan before, but he's 36. And that's my biggest concern. This is not a division to come into late in, and probably arguably a conference, because if you're going to get to the Super Bowl, you're going to have to go past some teams with some insane pass rush. I immediately think of Tampa, who are likely the biggest roadblock in the NFC. And you start looking at that and you think, well, I can see why we've done that, but is it going to be enough? But I'm happy we got him, and I think it will make a difference. In terms of what we needed going into the offseason, I thought DB and O-line. Now we brought some DBs back. We got some O-line in Mack, and obviously kept Trent Williams. The question mark on the O-line is McGlinchey, without a shadow of a doubt. He had a horrible season last year, one of the worst I've ever seen from an offensive lineman at the 49ers, which, when you consider some of the competition, is pretty bad to be able to say. But doing all of that and putting all that together, we didn't do a lot in free agency. We didn't bring in a ton of outsiders. We brought 1 or 2 in. I think Zach Kerr from the Panthers will be an interesting signing. He's made some noise on the interior of the D-line. We definitely need some depth there. If I'm looking at the defense, one of the things that worries me right now is the lack of edge depth. We got Nick Bosa and D Ford if he's healthy, and then not a great deal else. We're taking flyers on some people. Ebukam from the Rams. I think he's a decent player, but I don't think he moves the needle very much. And then after that, you're getting into the likes of like Arden Key and people like that, who are basically, we're giving them a 1-year tryout, and if it works, it works. If it doesn't, it doesn't. But yeah, because we constructed the roster in such a way, we were able to make the blockbuster trade that everybody's talking about, Trey Lance. I'll come on to him in more detail shortly, because I know you want to get in on that a little bit, Mark. We'll talk about Lance in more detail, but in general in the draft, I was surprised with some of the picks, but I think sitting back and looking at it now, I think it was pretty well done. Aaron Banks in the second. Doesn't look like a prototypical fit for the Shanahan offense. He's a big guy. He's, as you would say, I think, Mark, is a phone box player. He's not He's not somebody that's going to I don't think he's as mobile as, say, the other guards on the team, especially in a Shanahan offense. But I do think he's been drafted for a specific purpose, and that is largely to shore up the interior line, especially in pass pro. We were honestly, I cannot overestimate how much we were crumbling in the middle of the line last year. So I think he's a big-bodied guy. He's good in pass pro, and he'll probably start day one. In all honesty, we've nothing else at right guard, so I'd be shocked if he doesn't start. So I thought that was a good pick. We made an interesting move taking 2 running backs. We took Trey Sermon and Elijah Mitchell. I think both are good players. I'm just surprised we put draft capital in that, because running back traditionally is not a position in Shanahan's offense you need heralded players for. He's been able to get stuff out of people like Raheem Mostert, Jeff Wilson, who's undrafted. These are guys that he's been able to get production out of very little. We signed Wayne Goldman from the Giants as well, who I actually think may make the roster, and I think he'll be a good part of the rotation. But the 2 running backs is a little bit odd, but I mean, ultimately, if we're going to succeed, it's probably going to be running the ball, for a reason I'll come on to shortly. I thought we were lacking at DB. I've already said that. So I think Ambry Thomas at Michigan was an excellent pick. I really like this guy. I believe he sat out last season, largely down to the pandemic and other things. There was a suggestion that if he had played last season, he might have sneaked in the first round. Now, I don't know. I haven't seen enough of him to say that's definitely the case. I'll be honest. I don't watch Michigan, because if I wanted to watch a hardball coach team lose important games, I could just watch 49ers games from about 5-6 years ago. But I do like what I've seen of him. I think he's physical. I think he covers well. He fits our defense well. And I think he may make some noise out there. We haven't got a lot of DB, especially with Sherman gone. Verrett is going to start at one side, probably Mosley on the other side. But Verrett has a history of injuries. K'Wan Williams is one of the best nickel corners in the game, so I'm not remotely worried about that position. If he stays healthy, we'll be fine there. But I think on the outside, there is a vacancy. So I like that pick. I'd be interested to see what he can do. And then after that, we've took a few chances here and there. Hufanga out of UFC, the safety, I think could be an interesting special teams guy. He'll certainly be noticeable on the field. So I'm hoping he'll show up. If he plays like Troy Polamalu, which everybody was comparing him to, I'll be very happy with that. But I don't think he's anywhere near that good. But if we can get some production out of him, that's fine by me.
It's a big comp. Big comp.
Yeah, I think it's just because of the hair, though. I don't think it's anything to do with how he plays. As long as he's not as bad as Taylor Mays, we'll be all right. Roster as a whole, I think listen, I try to be reasonable. I'm a 49ers fan. Obviously, I want to come on here and say, yeah, we're going to win the Super Bowl. We're going to go, what will it be? That'd be 20-0 now, won't it? Because it's a 17-game season. We're going to go undefeated. Nobody could stop us. But being honest, there are some questions on this team, but overall, I think we're in a pretty solid place. I'm going to leave quarterback to last, because I know Mark has a couple of things there. Running back, I think we've got a pretty solid state of affairs. We got some good players in there. We got Mostert. Wilson's injured, unfortunately, but I think a few others have shown themselves. You can run in Shanahan's offense. If you can make one cut and read your blocks, you'll be fine. You don't need to be Barry Sanders or Gale Sayers to succeed in the 49ers offense. You can be an average running back and look good, I think. Receiver is an interesting one. I like Ayuk and I like Deebo Samuel. Deebo Samuel is probably my favorite player on this 49ers team, actually. But then after that, it's a weird cast of characters, really. We haven't got a defined slot receiver. There's a suggestion that Jalen Hurd might be the guy, but he's been injured for the last 2 seasons. So we know nothing about him, really. If he does make it on the field, I think as a big slot, he could be quite dangerous. One name to keep an eye on, just from reading about and seeing one or two things, is Trent Sherfield. Now, I know you're thinking, who the hell is that? And you're quite right to think that. Signed in free agency on a 1-year deal, but we did actually give him some guaranteed money. Now, the only other time Shanahan's ever gone out and got someone like this was Taylor Gabriel at the Falcons. And he had an absolutely solid year in that year that they ran to the Super Bowl. So, I don't know, maybe they're seeing something in him. I don't know. Be interesting to see where that... I'm quite intrigued to see how our receiver group shakes out, because there are guys that are capable. We got Sanu as well. We brought Sanu back. I don't know how much he's got left in the tank. Richie James is there. Richie James has been pretty solid, if unspectacular. Juwan Jennings is an interesting one for me. Didn't make the roster last year, But really like what I saw out of him in the little that we got to see, the practice stuff. Big physical guy. He was good in college as well. Just interested to see if he can make the roster. I think he might make some noise next year. Tight end is George Kittle and everybody else. George Kittle, at the risk of not provoking a 20-minute discussion, I'll say he's one of the top 3 tight ends in the league. I don't think that's arguable. The issue that I have is we are quite reliant on dual tight end sets, and right now we don't have a second tight end. Ross Dwelly has been in there. He's not very good, in all honesty. He's decent blocker. That's about it. We need to try and find somebody there, really. O-line I've already covered. I think we've beefed up guard. Alex Mack is the key. If Alex Mack has a good season, I think the 49ers on offense will have a good season. There's no real dramas there. D-line, same thing. I think it's dependent on how Bosa comes back from injury, to be honest. We haven't got a whole lot of depth. Anything we get out of D Ford is going to be an advantage. If he even plays, I'll be surprised. He's had a pretty serious injury, although there is a suggestion he'll be back. So that would be a big boost. I'm looking forward to seeing if Javon Kinlaw can take a step forward. I thought he had a solid end to the year, but he hasn't quite been the destructive force that was maybe expected. But I think he is quite raw. It'd be interesting to see if he has improved. We got one of the best D-line coaches out there, I think, so it'd be interesting to see if his coaching's helped him out. We have one of the best linebackers in the game for me, Fred Warner. I think as long as he's out there, I'm comfortable with our linebacking core. I think Dre Greenlaw's took a big step forward. He's probably most famous and probably will always be most famous, short of getting a touchdown in the Super Bowl for the tackle at the 1-inch line against the Seahawks 2 years ago in the last game of the season that won us the division. But I think that's a good linebacking core. DB I've covered. There are some question marks. It feels like we've been weak at corner for my entire time as a fan. We've never really had a standout corner. Even when we signed Sherman, it was on the downside of his career. So somebody's going to have to step up there and quickly, I think, because Verrett's only on a 1-year deal. Mosley, I think, is only on a 1-year deal. And I think K'Wan Williams has only got a year left as well. So there's a feeling in San Francisco that we're trying to hold it together just to make one more run at the Super Bowl and hopefully actually run the ball when we're ahead with 9 minutes to go, and maybe we'll actually win one. But yeah, I'm pretty happy with the state of the team. Now then, the big question, Mark. I know you've got something you want to ask me. Well, some stuff you want to ask me. So I think one's about Trey Lance. So go ahead. I'll let you in here before I talk about Trey Lance.
Cheers, John. Whew, you give a lot of information there, but I managed to pick some bits out to ask you some. Like the big talking point was obviously the trade when they went up, and they made this move to number 3, and it was all about who they're going to go with, and there was a media storm saying it was Mac Jones. And if you remember, John, at the time, I wasn't buying it. I was like, "There's no way they're moving up for Mac Jones. Not a hope in hell's chance." And I'll tell you why. Mac was the key to the clue. The sign Mack, who's going to do a lot of them calls and is going to pick out Mike and is going to set them offensive line packages. Getting a player like Mack meant that we're going to get somebody who was more or less, less experienced than Mac Jones back there. Now, when I think of Kyle Shanahan, I think of a devastating run game. I think how he wants to line up in 21 personnel. He wants to have Deebo Samuel in the X. He wants to have Ayuk. He wants to have Ayuk in the Z. He wants to have George Kittle in the Y. He wants to have Kyle Juszczyk as one of the running backs. And he wants to have a running back, Raheem Mostert. I think Trey Sermon's a really good pickup for you. The options that you've got in that offense with those players is petrifying enough. You've got Deebo, who's electric with the ball in his hands. You've got a carbon copy in Ayuk, who can do it in and arounds and all sorts. You've got George Kittle, who's as good at blocking as he is at receiving. You throw a Russian quarterback into that. And as a defensive coordinator, the thought of San Francisco 49ers lining up in 21 personnel, if everybody's fit, is petrifying. Good luck trying to guess what they're wanting to do. Because they're going to gash on the ground, or they're going to they're going to do some sort of gadget play, or they're going to just dump it off to one of their terrific ball in the hand wide receivers. Well, now you've got Trey Lance, who's going to just use his legs and take off. that's going to give defensive coordinators nightmares all season. And I think I was like, it's going to be Justin Fields. You, John, were like, it's going to be Trey Lance, even though I was mega in love with Trey Lance. I didn't think for one moment it was going to be Mac Jones. But Kyle Shanahan wants to play a 21 personnel. His offensive mind must be loving the kind of mismatches he can create with his first string package on the field. I'm thinking Ayuk, Debo, Kittle, Juszczyk, Raheem Mostert, and Trey Lance. I don't know how long Jimmy Garoppolo is going to get in the system before they put Trey Lance in, because he must be licking his chops at that prospect, you know what I mean?
Yeah, it's going to be... I'll talk about that in a sec, actually. I've got some thoughts on that.
The other good question is, and I've got a few of them, so that was the first one. That's more of a point than a question for you. I'm sure you'll talk about that. One of the questions is Mo Hurst, sneaky good pick-up, I thought. I thought he shone at the Raiders, you know, like in very limited snaps. I think he's a very good interior third down pass rusher. When you've got someone like Kinlaw and Arik Armstead, you know, who can kick inside and play alongside him on them third downs, I think, you know, like he's going to be a sneaky good addition to your team. Don't know how you feel about Mo Hurst.
Yeah, I think it'll be an interesting one.
I'll give you all the questions, John, and then you can come back, right? So we've got Mo Hurst there. Another one. I think if this team can stay healthy, they're one of the favourites for the NFC. I genuinely believe they're that good. I genuinely believe that Kyle Shanahan will be able to cover up the defensive blemishes and the losing of Salah with his offense if they can stay healthy. Another question is and my final one. Do you think this is a prove it yet for Kyle Shanahan? I think he came in, and albeit it's been out of his control a little bit with the injuries, but you kind of think Johnny needs to kind of prove it this year, and they need another deep playoff run.
Interesting. That's a tough one to answer. I'll start with the easy one. Mo Hurst, of the two we picked up from the Raiders, I think he's the better one and probably the more likely to make the roster. I was quite pleased we got him in a way. We are lacking some depth, you know, as I said, on the D-line. I think he might make some noise. I don't think he'll be a starter, but as a rotation guy, I think he'll be absolutely fine. Reece Shanahan, I don't know. It's difficult, isn't it? We gave him a contract extension, so I think unless the arse falls out of us, he's probably safe. I mean, for a start, I think we're still paying Chip Kelly off, so I can't imagine that Jed York wants to pay another coach off. And if he went, I imagine John Lynch would go as well, so we'd have to be paid a GM as well. Do I think he needs to? Probably, yeah, in all honesty. In every year that we've been bad, we've either had the talent of an expansion franchise, which was like his first couple of years, or we've had injury issues. Obviously, Garoppolo blew his knee out in 2018. And last year was ridiculous. But yeah, I do think there's an element of that. Everyone says how good a coach Shanahan is, and I'm not disagreeing with that, by the way. I actually wanted Mike Shanahan back at the 49ers for a long time. We ended up with Kyle. I think that was the right way to go. I think he probably does, though. Yeah, I think we need a big year. We need to be close. The question mark is, and you touched on it, is the quarterback position. So everybody says, what's your take on it? Who do you think? And I know I've took up plenty of program time, so I'll try and make this quick. The Trey Lance thing is difficult for me to evaluate because the way I see it is, all the way through the process, we've said, first of all, he was the right pick. Yeah, you covered that. I don't need to go into any more detail on that. I think for what we wanted, he was the right choice, and thank God we made it because, believe me, I'm not used to the 49ers making good draft decisions. But as far as him starting, the issue is we've told everyone that, oh, yeah, he's not necessarily going to start day one. And I don't personally think he will. But the issue then becomes, if he's coming in mid-season, something has gone wrong. Either Garoppolo's injured, which, you know, given his history is a reasonable possibility, or he's not performing. So I can't see a way that Lance can start at points this year and we can still be in contention unless he starts day one. I don't think he's going to start day one. I kind of hope he does, but I'm just not seeing it at the moment. And I think it might become a bit of a distraction if he doesn't start day one, because anytime Jimmy has a off game, I think the calls for Lance are going to increase. The question is, how long can you wait? And that's really up to Shanahan. But I think anytime you're making a mid-season swap of quarterbacks, it probably isn't going that well for you. Although, weirdly, the one exception certainly in 49ers history was Kaepernick coming in for Smith when he got concussed, and then we rode it all the way to the Super Bowl and should have won that as well. Not that I'm bitter. But, this is a team that's exciting to watch, but it could go off. This year could go off the rails, and it's only because there's so much focus on that quarterback position. If we don't start well and we don't win the first 2-3 games, there's going to be, we play the Lions first up. If we don't win that, there's going to be some questions, not just because it's the Lions, but it's the Lions with a new coach, a new team. But there's so much we can do with this offense. I think you've touched on it before, Mark, but there's so many options on this team. I'm so glad we kept Juszczyk, brilliant fullback. Probably the best fullback in the league, largely because most teams don't use one. Both receivers, brilliant. Kittle, brilliant. Good run game. Doesn't seem to matter who we put back there. We run out of running backs last year, and we've still generated yards. This is a team that can. I think this team can score with anyone, providing that the quarterback is playing well, be it Garoppolo or Lance. If we get 2019 Garoppolo, we're going to be absolutely fine. If we get 2020 Garoppolo, then probably going to see Trey Lance by week 4. It's an interesting. I really don't know how to evaluate this team, and it's largely because of that question. I'm really positive on the roster. There's one or two things I'm a bit unsure about, corner being one of them, but quarterback is the big one. What is going to happen there? And if I'm making a prediction right now, I think Lance is coming in mid-season, and I think that means that we're probably not doing that well. And maybe he could turn it around. I don't know, but it kind of depends on when he gets the call. But I haven't lost faith in Garoppolo, but ultimately he's been injured that many times. He's missed that many games. I think there's going to come a point where Lance gets a go. And I think once he's in, he won't come back out. That's the thing for me. We're not going to do a Dolphins here. We're not going to have Lance in for half the season and then suddenly swap back. I think once he gets in the team, he's in the team. So that's kind of where I'm sitting with it right now. This team can compete, but a lot needs to go right. And it did in 2019. We felt unbeatable for a time, but this year is going to be interesting. I'm looking forward to watching it, but I have some trepidation beyond the shadow of a doubt. And a large part of that is let's not have another year like last year as well, starting missing players here, there, and everywhere. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know how I feel. So hopefully one of you three can clarify it for me. Let's go over to the opposite side. Jordan, you're a Seahawks guy. You're in our division. What do you think of us? Where do you see us?
I'll try and keep it short, but I think what Mark says. I think that offense is frightening good if they get it right. If it's like we said it. I think I'm sure you've said it for the last few seasons. Everything has to fall right, and the injuries don't come. That is a team that will be challenging Tampa Bay. If they get the quarterback position right, if it all falls into place. Put it this way, San Francisco are going to be thereabouts. It's as simple as that. But it's all just got to fall right for them. And I think that's the best way to describe it without getting upset that you could be winning. I'm hoping it goes totally the other way. Apologies, John. I'm hoping they'll get the quarterback position right. It all goes tits up. But it is a fact. I look at the roster, and it is. If I want to see a Hawk fan, I'd be tuning in to watch San Francisco every week if they don't have injuries.
It'd be an interesting one, that's for sure. I think you're right, though. It's the big if, isn't it? That's definitely the only real question, I think, coming out of it. Let's go to you, Bones. What do you think of the 49ers? We play you week 1, so give me your opinion.
Man, week 1's going to be a conflicting week for me. Like, if I wasn't a Lions fan, I would also, much like Jordan, be tuning in to watch the 49ers. Probably will still be tuning in to watch a lot of the 49ers. Like, the way they want to play football. I just love. I love that kind of football. As much abuse as I've got in the past about run-heavy football, let's say. Teams that still use a fullback, teams that use a dual threat quarterback. These kind of teams, I just love watching. Like, teams that still use a fullback in 2021. Go on, Kyle Shanahan. Like, I love that. I love that a little bit. Like, I will be watching a lot of them this year. I think they're a great team to watch. I think you're not wrong about Kittle. Kittle's amazing. Like, top 3 easily. Like, if not top 1 or 2. Like, I think Kelsey's probably the only other arguable top 1 or 2 for me personally. But Kittle's a beast, and he loves wrestling. So I know. It's a good team, and honestly, I think Garoppolo. I don't think he needs. It makes sense to sit Lance for a bit, but I don't think Garoppolo needs to hang around. Like, I think you could get rid of Garoppolo. Not the end of the world. I think Lance is going to be good for you. I think, like Mark said, the threat of that backfield with those positions is unbelievable. And if you're not running it, you're passing it. And you've got the threats there as well. Ayuk's a great wide receiver. Like, I really liked Brandon Ayuk. I think it's a great team. It's going to be fun to watch next year. Like, I'll be watching, and that first game of the year is going to be probably brutal.
Well, we'll see. I don't know. We have a habit of letting ourselves down in week 1, so it'd be interesting.
Yeah, but as we're going to discuss soon, we're missing someone.
Yeah. That's a very good point. I mean, just on the Lance thing one last time, knowing the 49ers fans as I do, as soon as Garoppolo throws an incompletion, they're going to be shouting for Trey Lance. This is a fan base that was chanting for David Carr to come on to replace Alex Smith not so long back. So, this is a fan base that's ready to change quarterbacks. It likes the shiny new toy. Mark, I think you've been pretty. You said you think we're in the NFC race. You got anything else you want to add about the Niners, or are you?
No, I really like the Trey Sermon pickup. I really think he's exactly what Kyle Shanahan wants. He's just specialised he's a one-cut runner. That's what he is. He'll make a quick decision. He'll put his foot in the dirt. He'll make one cut and he'll hit the hole, which is what Kyle Shanahan wants. I thought he was a really good pickup. If I was looking for a mid-round prospect who you chose, who might make an impact on this game, on this team, knowing how much Shanahan will rotate his running backs, and with Jeff Wilson, who you mentioned injured, Trey Sermon, I think will have a role to play in this offense. As a one-cut runner, he's perfect for what he's want to do.
I think Trey Sermon is going to play that Tevin Coleman role that Tevin Coleman was doing, soften the defense up early on. He's a powerful runner. I'm quite looking forward to seeing what he could do, to be honest. Anyway, look, I've nearly taken up an hour of the program, so I'm going to, as you can probably guess, I could do a deep dive on the 49ers, but I'm not going to do that. We're going to go to the next team, which, if my alphabet is correct, is over to Bones and the Los Angeles, because I always get the fucking city wrong with these guys. Los Angeles Rams.
It is. I think your alphabet's correct. Anyway, the Rams. The Rams are an interesting team. The thing about the Rams is they have, like we've already said, they have a young head coach, interesting head coach. They've had good defensive performances. They almost they made it to a Super Bowl. But then it fluctuates. It really fluctuates. So I mean, in terms of the draft, the Rams hate having first-round picks, it seems. They just don't want them. Give them away for whatever we can get. And this year, they gave 2 firsts and a third to the Detroit Lions for my boy, Matthew Stafford. So, on the one side, I'm devastated to see Stafford leave Detroit. Honestly, there was a part of me that thought he would genuinely retire there. But after 4 different head coaches and everything he's gone through, fair play to the guy, wanting somewhere else, wanting pastures new. And I think for what the Rams were missing with Goff, for example, I think Stafford can fill that. When the run game is not there, Stafford will still make passes. Goff, when the run game is not there, supposedly isn't as good at making passes. But yeah, Stafford will keep the passing game going no matter what. I think they had to give away so much, didn't they, to offload the cost of Goff's contract. No one was taking him for a cheap price. Everyone talks about the Stafford deal and be like, oh, the amount of picks Detroit got for Stafford is crazy. Everyone's going to be worth loads this year. And it's on one hand, yes, but on the other hand, No, because look at Jared Goff's contract and what the Lions have to take on in terms of what they're giving him. So yeah, you had to find the deal there. That's going to be good for them, I think. But I'm glad I left my research towards the end of this week, just before we did the draft, just before we did the podcast today, the draft. Because Cam Akers has gone down with an Achilles injury, which, as much as that Rams fans will say this isn't a big deal, we have a lot of depth at running back, and they do have a lot of depth at running back, but they're all young, unproven guys, and yeah, I mean, you can look back at the other year, where the 2018, where I think it was 2018, where Gurley went down injured, and they made CJ Anderson their running back, and he played fairly well, probably best point in his whole career, realistically. So they can make it work with a different running back. McVay said he's not ruling out bringing in a veteran just to add some depth at that room, but I think the Akers injury is going to be a bigger deal than Rams fans might like to admit, and this leads into a point that I wanted to make about the O-line. Now, the Rams O-line is it can be fantastic O-line, but it has fluctuated really badly with the exact same set of guys. So 2018, they were the 6th best by PFF overall. Then in 2019, they were 31st O-line overall in the league with the exact same lineup. And then 2020, they were back to 3rd best O-line in the league, again with the exact same lineup. So whether the Rams can survive without Akers, I feel like is going to massively depend on which Rams O-line turns up. Does the 2020 Rams O-line turn up, or does the 2019 Rams O-line turn up? Because if the 2019 Rams O-line turns up, they're screwed. It's as simple as that. We have always said in the past, you need a good O-line, and you can have any basically running back behind you. If you've not got the O-line, you probably do need one of the better running backs to make your run game work. But the Rams are in a pickle now where they don't have the running back anymore, and they might have the O-line, but who knows? Because they could be the worst in the league next year. In terms of their receiving core, though, the Rams are definitely a threat. 100%, the Rams are a threat. Cooper Kupp is a great receiver. He may not be a burner, he may not be the fastest guy on the field, but he still makes contested catches deep down the field when they're catchable. I think there's a lot of Kupp's past couple of years where you can look at it and say, well, he had Goff thrown to them, and quite a few of the passes that Goff threw Kupp's way were uncatchable. You can't argue the fact that they were not catchable, but when he does catch the ball, when it is a catchable ball, he's a threat after the catch. He's a big threat after the catch. His rack yardage is good. They've got something similar on the other side of him in Woods. Woods is another good rack wide receiver when he's got the ball in his hands. They're both willing blockers. Kupp is a good blocker in the run game, so Woods is not bad either. They picked up Tutu Atwell in the draft this year as their first pick in round 2. Who is he's not the biggest guy, but he's a legitimate deep threat. This guy's quick, and I think he'll suit the Rams. He will suit the Rams' offense most likely, and he's ready to go now. He will fit in, and he can go day one. So in a weird way, the Rams' first pick was a bit of a win now move, which they've gone out and grabbed Stafford. They've got a receiver who's ready to go, fast, deep threat, something they needed alongside Kupp and Woods. I think realistically, he may not have the highest ceiling, but if it's a win now pick, that they don't often have the highest ceiling. They normally are more pro ready and might fall off. Higbee at tight end, another part of the receiving core. I think he's gonna have a big year. I think Stafford is known for enjoying throwing to the tight end. He loves that, and I think Higbee's gonna have another great year. He's not had bad years. He was a big target for Goff in the red zone. He was a good touchdown catcher, and they also did pick up one last point on the tight end quickly. It was a wide receiver in the draft this year. In the later picks, he was in the 4th. Jacob Harris, listed as a wide receiver out of UCF. I wouldn't be surprised if in a year or 2 he is a tight end starting in this roster. I think he's one to watch in the future, and he's definitely going to be making the move over to tight. He's 6'5", 211 pounds. And he was apparently a lot in the offseason. A lot of his contact was with the Rams tight end coach. So, yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if he makes a transition. other parts, I mean, they have a good defense. I did want to bring this up. I'm sorry, Jordan, but the Seahawks game last year was a standout game for the LA Rams. They had, like, if you want to look at what the Rams can do on defense, you look at the Seahawks game. It was a rough time for the Seahawks, but they basically had a great game across the field. Donald had a great game. The what is it, 1st and 25 on basically your own goal line springs to mind. The sack there. It was. They've got a good defense, but then they lost Troy Hill. They needed to add some depth back in for the DB room, definitely. The coaching change might be a big factor in this, though. So Staley has moved on to be a head coach, and they have. Oh, what's his name? Is it Harris? Is Harris the new defensive coordinator for them? I've forgotten already. So who knows if it was the defensive coordinator making this all come together, this defense could be completely different next year. Raheem Morris, thank you. Sorry, that is. So yeah, who knows? They lost on the D-line. They did lose Brockers and Fox in free agency. So again, they did add some depth during the draft with the Bobby Brown and someone else. Bobby Brown and Ernest Brown. Yeah. There we go. Got there in the end. Bobby Brown and Ernest Brown. Some depth at D-line, sorry. And they picked up some linebackers, which they definitely needed to address the linebacker room. So they did pick up Ernest Jones in the 3rd round. I think he'll fit in quite well in this draft, in this team. But because I mean the linebackers for the Rams is hard. They didn't stay healthy at all last year, did they? They needed some extra linebackers in that room just in case. That Jake Funk pickup at running back doesn't seem that bad either. Now, after losing Akers, you'd look at that pick and be like, that's another running back in the last 3-4 years or whatever. But Akers has gone down, so worth it now. Didn't have much more to say on the Rams, to be honest. I think they're a solid contender with Stafford. I really, really do. I think this guy has been playing for us for so long. And nobody watches the Lions. We barely even make it onto red zone most of the time. Like, it's embarrassing how unwatched we are. But Stafford is an absolute beast, and I really hope in another offense he finally gets the title that he definitely deserves, because he should be considered one of the best quarterbacks in the league. I definitely think he's so good. But playing at the Lions and making us competitive in games we should have lost. But anyway. I digress. I could go on about Stafford for hours because I think he's a very underestimated quarterback. But I much like the question about the San Francisco 49ers, I do think this is a bit of a prove-it year for McVay. I think the amount of big moves he's gone and made, but means that it either happens now or it's not going to happen. You've given away all our first-round picks for like 3 years straight. If it's not going to work, he basically in a recent interview said, I'm much happier this offseason, which basically means now Goff is gone. I'm much happy. So in summary, just to wrap it all up quickly, I do think it's a big prove-it year for McVay. I think this team needs to do well. I think it's poised to do well, and I really hope Stafford has a great year. I really, really do.
Good points. Some really good points. I think you hit the nail on the head right at the end as well, though. This is a team that is loaded up to win now. If it doesn't win in the next 2-3 year window, they're just not going to do it. I don't think there's nothing in the cupboard to replenish the team after this. Not that that's a bad thing. You see a window, you take a shot. I got no issue with that. You could argue we've done the same thing. So, but I think the biggest positive for me, probably one of the best moves of the offseason, Stafford coming in at QB. I think that is a serious game changer. I'm quite scared to play them this year because they normally play us quite close anyway. Although, interestingly, we were terrible last year and still beat them twice. So, I don't know. Those are always good games. I think that's going to add some intrigue next year. Mark, I know you've got some thoughts on LA. Let's throw it over to you. What do you think?
I like Stafford. I'm a big Stafford fan. I'm a Stafford believer. But has the love for Stafford not just been blown out of control in the NFL circle since he ended up at the Rams? I was reading articles the other day where people had him as top 5 quarterback. I was listening to the Flying Coach podcast, which is nearly as good as ours. It's bloody brilliant, truth be told. where Kyle Shanahan and Sean McVay were on there with Peter Schrager, and they were talking about Matt Stafford, and it was like God, they were lauding this kid. The truth of the matter is Matt Stafford, although not helped at Detroit, you know what I mean, is still really, I suppose, a bit of an unknown quality, which is a funny thing to say, you know what I mean? He's gone early and they've put a lot of capital into him, and it just seems like it's being blown out of proportion. I don't know if it's the link between McVay and, you know, having a quarterback that he's brought in, you know, and given so much for him. I mean, I'm a Stafford fan. I really am a Stafford fan. I'm not having to go, but I am thinking that this Stafford love is starting to get a bit out of control. On the Rams, I don't think they're as balanced as the 49ers. You know, like they lost some key pieces in free agency. They lost the two lads that went across to Cleveland. I know Jordan will mention them, so I'll not talk so much on them. But they're going to be a big miss. You know what I mean? I look at their roster and I start thinking, you know, they lost Ekubam, who was mentioned before. So I'm thinking, who's going to play outside linebacker alongside Floyd? I'm thinking, who's going to play a corner opposite Jalen Ramsey? I like their offense more. I like the wide receivers, Cooper Kupp, Robert Woods, Deshaun Jackson, who they brought across from Philadelphia. I still think he's got something in the tank in this offense. Tutu Atwell, give them a deep threat. Van Jefferson is a good player. But offensive line, it's better than average. The big thing is how much does Andrew Whitworth have left in the tank? Feels like he's been playing 38 now. You know, he's going to be trusted to cover Stafford's blind side.
He's 40.
Is he 40? Jesus,
he's 40.
There you go. So he's been around forever. At some point, he's going to drop off. So you know, like you know. So I'm not as bullish on the Rams as what other people are. And now they've lost Cam Akers, and I don't care what anybody says. That's a big fucking deal. You know, he was really coming on at the second half of last year, especially in the playoffs. They've got nothing. They've got Darrell Henderson, who even when he was drafted as a change of pace back, who is now going to be trusted to tote the rock. I'm petrified of what he's going to look like in pass protection, you know, especially around the goal line where he's going to need to do it. They're talking about some veterans, but who's out there? Peterson? Todd Gurley?
Pretty much right Peterson.
Right now I'm thinking Henderson's probably a better bet, and it doesn't look that good of a bet anyway. Although I do think he's a good running back. I just worry about him in pass pro. You know, like, yeah, I do. I look at this and I think, I'm not going to criticise Les Snead because what he does well. And look, if you're picking at the back end of the draft every year like he is, you might as well trade away your first rounders for known quality. Because when you're picking in the 20s, it really is a crapshoot. And what the Rams have done really well is they've done really well at developing their mid-round guys. You know, like getting guys in the 4th and 5th round and developing them to play some sort of role. They're gonna have to develop because they're starting to see the effect of having all these superstars like Aaron Donald and Jalen Ramsey, because you lose those next level players as a result of that. You know, everyone seems to be pegging the Rams, and people are putting money on the Rams. I want to like them more, but you know, like for me, I think they're the second best team in this division. You know, and Matt Stafford, although I'm a fan, I just think the buzz form's got out of hand at this stage. I just think it's got too much.
I mean, there was a quote from starting 49ers safety Jimmy Ward about Stafford this week where he said something to the effect of, well, he's still the guy that never won a playoff game in Detroit. Now, I'm not so sure that that's a massive insult because, frankly, Detroit haven't been near the playoffs in a very long time. But it's an interesting point. You know, it's hard to project the guy in a better team because he hasn't had one. Yeah, probably arguably hasn't had a team this loaded. I get what you're saying, Mark. I do. I think there's, but I don't know.
I just have to say while we're talking about Stafford, like we're coming back to it, like this guy is better than all. I know the hype has been overblown at this point, but I would have been like this before he moved to the Rams. I would have told you all of this because like this guy was throwing no-look passes before Mahomes was even in the league. Like this guy, he's responsible for so many wins that the Lions did not deserve at all. Like this guy is going to be good. I just have to believe it. He's such a good quarterback, and I feel so sorry for him that he's been stuck in this position where, all right, yeah, he never won a playoff game with Detroit, but he got us to the playoffs, and that's further than Detroit's been in 57 years. Like, come on, like, but yeah, I would have said he was a top 10 quarterback in this league before he moved to the Rams. Like, he's just hampered by a shite team, like, is the sad truth of it. But I did want to say there will be one thing. I'll never get to use this meme again, and it will make me sad. Because it's one of my favorite memes to use, and I'll never get to use it again because he doesn't play for us no more. But yeah, I feel like Jordan deserves to speak. I've just cut in because
I'm going to let Jordan. I want him to tie break this debate over Stafford. What you got, Jordan?
I have to talk about Stafford. I'm going to talk about something else. It definitely, like, I get what Mack's saying and stuff, but it will definitely improve the Rams' offense. There's no doubt about it. You know, Jared Goff went through one read and he struggled. At least Stafford will get through the first read. You know, like and be able to move forward. But I just want to touch on the defense. You know, in defense, you know, I think Bones kindly mentioned it earlier about Seahawks against the Rams defense, and I know full well how much of a nightmare it's been against them over the years. But I think Mark made a good point of, like, when you're paying people like Donald, it's going to suffer the second load of talent. You know, you got people like Johnson and Troy Hill, I think it was, when it going to the Browns. You got Michael Brockers going, you know, like win the trade with Stafford, and it's like that. It's like Mark said again. These people like Taylor Rapp, who I do like, is a ex-Husky player, Jordan Fuller and Troy Reader. They're going to need these guys to step up. And are they? We've seen them in small batches, and Troy Reader had a decent season last year in the games that he did play. But are they going to be able to step up this year and keep that defense that's been so strong over the last few years? And it's a big question mark for me, to be honest with you. I don't know. They'll still get production out of, like, teams like Donald and Ramsey. You know, I'm not saying they're going to fall totally off the cliff, but there is some big concerns there. And I think on offense, the offensive line, like I said, to Whitford, 40-year-old, I don't know how he keeps doing it, to be honest with you. I'm sure I see him go down injured in like every year, and he still comes back and he's still playing. But I'm a big fan of Cooper Kupp and Robert Woods, and Deshaun Watson's a good. Deshaun Jackson, is a good pickup. And obviously, like you mentioned, the Cam Akers thing is going to be a big problem. So I think Rams are probably going to go backwards compared to what I expect them to go backwards compared to where they were last year.
Interesting. I think one of the things I would say from the discussions we've had so far, all three teams we think could be contenders, but we also think that it could go badly wrong as well, or they could take a step backwards. I don't think there's any real consensus on, this team is definitely going to be good. Mark thinks the Niners are going to be a threat to the NFC. I'm not that confident. I'm a Niners fan. You know, Bones thinks Stafford's going to be MVP. The rest of us are a little bit more scared. You know, it's just interesting. I think there's real boom and bust in all the teams we talked about. Probably coming to the most solid team, I think, left. Although I'm interested to see what you think, Jordan. We're going to let Jordan talk the Seahawks. What have you got for us, Jordan?
I think I don't know if it's just me as a Seahawk fan. I obviously will see what you guys think after, but I think it's the same. We haven't lost many players and we haven't gained many players, but with everything that I'm going to talk about, it seems like it's a new chapter at Seattle, you know, especially on the offense. You know, I know, like I said, it sounds crazy to say that because they've got a lot of the same players, but obviously we've got a new offensive coordinator, Shane Waldron, and it's just totally. I don't know. This is the thing. It's going to be difficult. I've read loads of interviews and watched different interviews with Pete Carroll, and obviously he's going to have a massive say in the offense. But it seems like he's going to give the reins a little bit to Shane Waldron, and you see what he did at the Rams, what type of football he plays, and for me, it's going to be a lot different, and it kind of excites me as well. But obviously, it's new for what Russell Wilson and everyone else has played before, so it could take some time to get used to it, you know. So like that's where I think to myself, is it going to be rough with a smooth this season? You know, I could talk about this guy for ages, and Mack will back me up. I think Dwayne Eskridge is going to be a massive piece in this Shane Waldron. It's going to be more up tempo, I feel, and that's going to suit Russell Wilson more. I think I read a stat somewhere where I'm not saying it's going to be crazy up tempo, no huddle, but when Russell Wilson plays no huddle, he's like, I think he's top 3 passer rating, in the NFL with no huddle. And like I say, I'm not saying it's going to go no huddle all the time, but I think Shane Waldron's going to bring an up tempo, and then the players like Dwayne Eskridge, who is. He's only like 5'9", like slot guy when he played for Western Michigan, wasn't it, I believe. He's just so physical, and you just need to go watch him to believe that a 5'9" guy can do what he can do with his feet, and an explosive. And I think he's just going to fit this new scheme that I hope that they're going to do moving forward. It's going to be. Just think of the Rams offense, where it's. You can go long, but you've got the dump offs to like Cooper Kupp and Robert Woods, where it's just fun out of the backfield. You can go just short range. You can go long if you want to. And obviously they've brought over tight end Gerald Everett, and you've seen him a few times come out the backfield with the ball and different things like that. And I don't know if I'm just getting ahead of myself, and I'm hoping that's what it is, but it just feels like it's a new era on this offense, with Shane Waldron. But the question is, will there be teething problems with it early on? I hope not. But I think it's going to be fun to watch. Sometimes Russell Wilson is a fabulous quarterback. I think we can all agree on that. He is really good. But sometimes he can be stuck. Last year, especially when with the scheme, we got matched up on defense with the schemes, and they found us out. He seemed to, obviously he's great at scrambling, but he seemed to struggle. I think with the Rams offense, it helped Jared Goff, even though he's not the best quarterback. I'm just criticising him for it. They always try to give him the first read, and I think that's what they'll do with Russell Wilson. And obviously he's capable. If you don't have the first read, he can go through it. And moving on to the offensive line, I've tried, like I say, I'm trying to keep it as minimal as possible because I could go on for ages. So onto the offensive line, I think bringing in Gabe Jackson, I know Mack knows him very well. Obviously, he's getting on a bit now, but I think he still improves our offensive line. Brings in experience in there. With Dwayne Brown, who's even though at the age of 35 I think is a fantastic Dwayne left tackle. I think he was ranked in the top 5 by PFF last year for pass protection, which is what you want in a left tackle, and of course, perfect for us. Yeah, I do like the offensive line. I think obviously if players go down, I think the swing players not the best for us really. I know we've picked up Stone Forsyth, who I thought would go a lot higher, to be honest with you, in the draft. His run defenses and his run offensive is not great, but his pass protection is fantastic. When I saw him at the Gators, I don't know why he went so late, but they moved up for him. Pete Carroll and Cole moved up for him, so obviously they see something in him. So yeah, I think I do like the offensive line, but I think there's questions if players do go out injury, and we might struggle there. I think I'm going to bring Mack into this straight after, because this is the big concern for me is the corners for Seattle. I know how much Mack loves his corners. It's weird how we've just gone full circle where I've seen Pete Carroll talk. DJ Reed had a fantastic back end of last season. I will say that the teams that we played were people like Eagles, Jets. We lost to the Giants. It's not the greatest of teams from last season, but Pete Carroll saw something in DJ Reed, who's I think 5'8". I think he might be 5'9". I'm not sure. He saw something in him, and he's gone full circle. Picked up Trey Brown, who's a 5'10" corner, and thinks he's going to play on the outside. If it comes off, fantastic, but obviously it's a big concern for me because I look at the other corners we've got, and we've picked up Akella Weatherspoon from yourself, from 49ers, who he's had good games, mostly bad games, to be honest with you. They expected a lot from him in San Francisco, I think, and he just didn't deliver most of the time. I know he's had injuries. We've got what's his name from Demarius Russell, he was fantastic at the Packers. We had him at safety last year. They're going to move him to corner. Got Trey Flowers, who is okay. We've got Amada, who's okay. I'm happy with the safety, but yeah, I'll bring Mack in now because obviously I know how much he loves his corners, and I just see a massive concern there with the guys that we've got to face, people like George Kittle and Hopkins, and obviously going back to the Rams, you've got Woods and stuff, and I just feel that would be could be annihilated at that position. I don't know what you feel about it, Mac.
Yeah, so I wrote in big letters to ask you as a question, right, Jordan? What is going on with your secondary? Because truthfully, I don't know. I think it's a bit of a mess. DJ, I like DJ Reed. He did have a good game. Did have a good end of the season. Really impressed. I liked him a lot. He did really do well. And you obviously got Trey Brown from Oklahoma, another small corner. But I don't know what's going on with this Seattle pass defense. You were terrible last year. You got better actually as DJ Reed came in. I just don't. I think it's just as well you've got a good offense, because I think you're going to need to score 30 points a game to stay in many games. Because one thing that erases a bad pass defense is a good pass rush. But you don't have one of them, either. You know what I mean? I'm like, who's bringing the heat on this depth chart? I'm looking at it and I'm thinking, you've got rid of Reed, and I'm thinking, who's your 3-tech? You got Poona Ford. And I'm like, who's your actual 3-tech? Who's going to be playing 3-tech alongside Poona Ford? Is it Al Woods? I don't know. I look at your defensive ends and I think, right, you got that Darrell Taylor from Tennessee. I did like him coming into the draft. He was very limmy, I would say, very long, limmy, flailing pass rusher. Really raw. Maybe they see something in him. Maybe you can tell us more about him. You brought Carlos Dunlap, of course, on a trade. You've got him there. But I'm thinking, I don't respect your pass rush enough. And I really worry about your secondary. I would have said you would have been all right in the secondary. Could you have got pressure on opposing quarterbacks? But I'm worried about you being able to do it, sustaining pressure. Kilo Witherspoon out of Colorado. When he went to the 49ers, I thought he was a good pickup. For one reason or another, and most of it's been injury, he's never really done that. And maybe Pete Carroll thinks they can salvage him, But yeah, at this point, Jordan, you know what my other question is? Do you honestly think the trade for Jamal Adams was worth it?
I love Jamal Adams. I don't think it's worth it. At the time, I thought it might have been a good pickup, but obviously over the last 2 years, I don't think it's worked out as well as they would have hoped. And going back to your pass rush point, I know we didn't have Carlos Dunlap for the full season, but and even Jamal Adams missed games. But when Jamal Adams is your leading guy on sacks, you've got a problem. And yeah, it's. I think John mentioned it in the chat. I don't know if it yesterday, a couple of days ago, and it's again, it's similar to what I said about full circle with the corners. It's full circle from where we just seem to have dismissed the defense and hoping that we score more points. I think I said it in chat yesterday. I feel like in most games we'll have to score 30+ points if we want to win a lot of the games. Unless a few players come out and end up having peak performances. Darrell Taylor, I do like him. Obviously, he's had his setback with his injury. I don't know what they're going to do with him. I've heard potentially that they were going to thinking about having a linebacker, but I don't know if they're deciding on what they want to do with him. I'm hoping Jordan Brooks has a big year. I don't mind him as well. But these are players that are in positions where we're not that bad with Bobby Wagner and things like that. But yeah, the defense is a concern. I'm hoping that something happens magical where it ends up being okay. But it is concerning. I'm hoping that Sean Waldron's got a magic wand and we end up scoring 35 points every game and we win. But it's going to be fun to watch for neutral. It's going to be high scoring games. I think the offense could be. But even then, like thinking about it, really, the offense could be anything as well. You know, like if they are teething problems with Shane Waldron, Seattle Seahawks could find themselves in a real pickle, you know, this year. And they might not be fun to watch at all. So, don't really know where else to go with it. I've kind of talked myself into
you've read it down list.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you, Mark. I think that I am concerned massive about the defense. We've got 2 Pro Bowl safeties. I don't know. You know, I like Quandre Diggs, good player, but you're picking at things where it's not going to help you win games with this defense. You know, obviously Bobby Wagner's fantastic, but I think I do. It's probably going to be Al Woods with Poona Ford, I think. But
do you know what? There's always one of those teams that just disappoints, and you're kind of like, how are they that bad? You know, like last year it was Dallas Cowboys. You know, like they were a really good roster, and they ended up just being terrible and picking early. And I hate to say it, Jordan, because you're a mate of mine and we'll have really good chat. It wouldn't surprise me if this year's team at the end of the year, where we're scratching my head and going, how are the Seahawks that bad? Is the Seahawks? Because defensively, I look around and I'm like, whew. You know, like you've got Bobby Wagner and you've got Poona Ford, who I feel quite comfortable in them too. Jamal Adams plays in a low-key position, box safety, albeit he makes up for that in the sacks that he gets. But apart from that, I'm like, what else is there? And I totally agree. This is all on Russell Wilson now. This is all on Russell Wilson. I think they're expecting to be a high-powered offense, which is weird for a Pete Carroll team. And I think that you're going to see Russ really like you said, having to put 30 points on the board every single game to be able to win games, you know, and I don't know if that's equipped to go deep in the NFL today, you know.
I was making another quick point before I let other 2 guys have a chat, but it's like you're saying, we're expecting a lot on Russ. Obviously, we've re-signed Chris Carson. Just say Chris Carson goes down injured. Rashad Pennyworth, first-round pick, and they expected big things. He can't get on the field. Obviously, like I've mentioned a few times, we've got Shane Waldron. I don't know how much it changed, but we rely on the run a lot, really. And when Chris Carson missed the 4 games, I think we lost 3 of them. You know, we need a running back to set up what we did with Russell Wilson. You know, and it's and especially that schedule early on. It's going to see that schedule early on is going to see where we're at. See how we are. We've got Colts, Titans, Steelers. You know, really early on. I think there's 49ers on the 3rd game. We've got it quiets down a bit later on. You know, back end. I think we've got winnable games, but yeah, it's we could be sitting in a really bad place before we go into that. I think it's week 6 bye. Yeah, I'll try to be positive early on, but it's gone downhill, hasn't it?
I can't believe I'm going to do this, but I'm actually going to be slightly more positive about the Seahawks than you. I mean, first of all, yeah, all the concerns you've raised are pretty valid. I don't think there's anything I can fundamentally disagree with there. It's interesting that the team has flipped around completely. It's an offensive team now. There's absolutely no doubt about that. Waldron, I think, is a brilliant hire. In all honesty, when I saw you got him, I thought that might be something that puts them back, sort of not in relevance. Obviously, it's still a relevant team, but maybe just gets them a level up. Now, defense is an issue. You've got an interesting cast of D linemen. I just looked up because I remembered you signing a couple of guys. One of the guys you got was Kerry Hyder, who led us in sacks last year. He's a very good player, and I think you'll definitely get some value out of him. You've also got Alden Smith, which I didn't even know. When did that one happen?
Well, to be fair, Alden Smith, there's talk of him not even making roster. I don't know how long that he pulled himself out of camp, you know, because he wasn't in shape. He said no. So. I don't know what's going to happen with that one. There is talk of him maybe not making it, but yeah, it were weird. I think they signed him up, and I think about 2 weeks later he was on a misdemeanor. You know, so typical Seahawks.
we should do an episode on like the best, well, the worst, if you like, squandered talent in NFL history. And I reckon Alden Smith might be up there because he was one of the best pass rushers I've ever seen. But what the hell's happened to his career? I honestly don't know. But yeah, that aside, the strange thing is you could be starting 2 former 49ers at corner because DJ Reed is already there and he signed Witherspoon as well. So I don't know. I can't be positive about the defense. Maybe you'll get some stuff out of it. I certainly think Hyder will have a good season. Puna Ford, really good player. Obviously, Bobby Wagner. And then it gets really difficult. But that offense, I don't know. I like that offense. I think you'll be in most games. I don't know if you'll be able to see them out, but I think you'll be in most games. I think there's something to like here. And let's be honest. Going back probably a decade now, but well, probably longer actually. There was nobody hyping up the Seahawks defense before they became what they were. What they were that everybody remembers now, the Legion of Boom. I'm not saying it's there; it might not be, but don't count Pete Carroll out. I don't think. You think he's? It really pains me to say this because I can't stand Pete Carroll, one for coaching the Seahawks, but I didn't like him when he was in college anyway. But he is one of the top coaches in the NFL. So I think if there's anybody that can get some wins out of this team that they probably shouldn't be getting, it's probably him. But it's a big year. It's a really big year, I think. It's going to be interesting to see. It's going to be interesting. Let's go over to our positivity correspondent. What have you got for Seattle, Bones?
It's hard to say anything that really hasn't been covered here. I think this has been it's hard to. There's nothing to argue here. Is that like the defense is lacking something. The offense is clearly the standout side of this team. I was just looking at the depth chart in front of me. Like the offense is clearly the standout side of this team, isn't it? Like I feel like we'd be doing a disservice to Tom if we didn't mention like DK Metcalf is an absolute unit. Like that guy's unbelievable. Like I think everyone wishes he played for them because look at him, like Jesus Christ, freak of nature, that guy. But yeah, I mean they've got other pieces. Like Will Disley's a pretty good tight end. Like you've got decent running. I mean I understand the Rashad Penny thing and the Chris Carson thing. I think wasn't Rashad Penny also out for a bit of last year as well though? Isn't that not part of it?
I think he's been out more games than he's been in. He just can't get on the field.
It's a shame, really. Like I hope, because you do hope a first rounder, especially a running back, can eventually get on the. But this is why Mark says you don't pay first round picks for running backs because here's a prime example, Rashad Penny. But yeah, it's tough, and I think you're right. Like it's going to be one of those teams that if they score 30 points a game, they might win a few. But I do think in terms of at least this division and the divisional games, they're going to struggle against all three of the other teams in this division this year. Because I think a lot of the other teams have really good offenses, but also have better defenses. And if it's going to come down to who can score more, I don't know. We'll see. But I think it's going to be tough for the Seahawks. I think you're right. I think Pete Carroll has a bit of a big year ahead of him. Could be bad for the Seahawks.
I'm just going to throw one grenade in there. I doubt it would be Carroll's last year, but he's been coaching for a long time. How long do you think he's going to be there?
Well, you saw him take his top off when they signed DK Metcalf. He's still looking good for his age. But I don't know. I think he loves football. I think as long as the Seahawks are happy with him, I think he'll be there for a while more now. I think the grenade were when they announced an extra game that it were away. At least we do. Even when we're not playing well season, it's a hard place to come. Seattle, we seem to get results, at home because of the 12s, But yeah, I think Pete Carroll. I think even if it's like you've all mentioned, even if it is a bad season, I think everyone will be maybe Ken Norton Jr. I'm not sure. Maybe everyone will be back next year because with Shane Waldron coming on the offense, especially, you'll get we'll get a leeway this year if it don't go right. But
it's going to be interesting. Yeah. They're always a tough team to beat when they're at home. We hardly ever beat you in Seattle. I don't think many teams do. So I don't know. I'm not as down on them as maybe everybody else is. I think there's some talent there.
I think if they do manage to get up to 8 wins, I think it could still get them in with the extra place and just what the NFC is like. I think they could sneak in the playoffs. But if you haven't got a chance to go on to win it, I know this is very negative, but if you've not got a chance to go on to win it, is there any point in sneaking into the playoffs? You might as well. Not that we're good with first round picks anyway, but.
It'd be interesting. That's definitely a variable that's been added this year. Obviously, more playoff teams, an extra game. How many playoff teams do we see in this division?
Two last year, wasn't it?
As this division's a weird one because it's you want to be able to back every single team, but there's enough questions about every single team to feel dubious about them. I think that there's two. Do you know what? I honestly think that there's 4 decent teams in this division, but there's question marks about all of them. There's question marks about the depth at the Rams outside of their superstars. There's question marks about the injury history and the quarterback at the 49ers. There's question marks about will the Seahawks offense be able to make up for their poor defense? And the Cardinals, there's question marks because, well, there's Cliff Kingsbury. So it's kind of like you've got 4 teams who have all got something that you can get behind, but have all got a big thing that can really derail them. Ultimately, I think that there will be 2 teams that come out of this division into the playoffs.
What about you, Bones? What are you thinking?
I think 2. I think 2 is a fair bet. I want to see 2 because I think the 49ers are pretty much a shoe-in, but I would also like to see the Rams go far. I've already expressed this, so yeah.
I'm getting very uncomfortable with everybody tipping the Niners. It's a strange position to be in. Usually we've done better when people aren't tipping us. Are we doing the division prediction? I don't know whether we actually come to a consensus here, but shall we do the division prediction?
Maybe we should do them individually. Maybe we should just give our individual ones because I'm going to go if the 49ers can stay fit. If the 49ers can stay fit, I think that their base 21 personnel package, regardless of whether it's Garoppolo or Trey Lance back there, I think it's frightening. It's frightening to me. The defense is well rounded. There's just been some news which just broke, which I'm sure John will talk about.
I'll drop that in.
So I'm going to say that if the 49ers can stay fit, they're going to win this division.
Who you got, Bones?
I'm in the exact same boat. I think the 49ers, as I expressed when we talked about the 49ers, I like what they want to do with the football. And I do think they've got a good team for it. And I'm looking forward to seeing them do exactly that.
This episode has gone the opposite way to how I expected. Everybody's more positive about our teams than we are. What do you think? What do you think, Jordan? Who's winning the division here?
Yeah, I can't get past 49ers as long as everyone stays fit. I know, you probably didn't think you'd be hearing that, John, but yeah, they're a good team. They are a good team. They've just been really unlucky. It's like you said, even on the Super Bowl run, they were unlucky with injured, but the last 2 years it's been their big playmakers that have been injured, on defense, So if everything goes well, I think Seahawks are going to be Seahawks. I wish it was 49ers. 49ers are going to be top.
It's funny, isn't it? Because my instinct as a very jaded sports fan in all senses wants to downplay that and be like, "No, you're all mental." But then I think about the fact that we had so many players out last year, and we still should have made the playoffs. We lost 2 games we should have won, and if we'd won those, we would have been in. So it is hard to back against us. Go on, you forced me into it. I'm going to have to agree with you. We're going to have a clean sweep for the number 1. Who's coming bottom is the bigger question. I think the order does itself. If the 49ers are going to be top, does anybody else think that the Rams aren't going to be second? I think the Rams are going to be second. Anybody disagree with that? I think I've probably got the Rams. Yeah, if I wasn't a negative 49ers fan, I would have put the Niners second. I would have said the Rams to win it. So, yeah, based on the fact you've all talked me into the Niners winning it, I'll have to say the Rams coming second.
So we've got the 49ers winning it. We've got the Rams coming second. The next big question is who's going to be bottom?
I think this is the biggest debate. I think it could definitely... It could definitely go either way. The wheels could fall off the Cardinals. Cliff Kingsbury could absolutely fluff it again. Or... the Seahawks could fail to score 30 points again, the defense won't stop anybody scoring, and they'll lose games. It could go either way, but I have to say I feel like it looks worse for the Seahawks right now on paper than it does for the Cardinals.
Yeah, I think if you look at the two rosters and you take away Russell Wilson, you look at those two rosters without Russell Wilson in it. I'd rather have the Cardinals roster. D-Hop, even AJ Green now, who's aging, is going to be a red zone target. They've got Chandler Jones coming back. And they've got Buda Baker, and they've got these young pieces. The only thing which is holding them back is Cliff Kingsbury. But I'm gonna say that take Russell Wilson out of the equation. Arizona's probably got the better roster. D-Hop and DK Metcalf, you know what I mean? They're one of them kind of things. I'm tempted to put the Cardinals at third. And I'm sorry, Jordan, because I want to like the Seahawks, but I'm really fearful because I know how a bad defense can make you a really bad football team. Believe you me, I'm a Raiders fan, mate. You know what I mean? So I know how a bad defense can really make you a bad football team. So I'm going to go Cardinals third. I'm going to go Seattle Seahawks fourth.
Yeah, I can't. Obviously, my heart wants to say Seahawks third, but I can't disagree with you. I think it was when I first started watching Seahawks. I think it was Mike Holmgren was the coach, and it was his last year. And I think they had I can't remember what it was, 3 or 4 record, and the year after that it was Jim Mora, and I think again it was a similar record. Ever since then, since Pete Carroll came in, I think I've only ever seen 7+ wins for the Seahawks. I just don't know if that's going to change this year because it would happen eventually. I've had a good run, haven't I? I've had a good run.
Do you know what it is, Jones? Do you know what else makes us worried as well? Is your if you've got a good offense and you've got a poor defense, you want an offense who can keep the clock for ages to keep your defense off the field, which means you want a really good run game. And you've got Chris Carson, who's a really good running back, but gets injured a lot. And I kind of think even if you are in the lead in games, if Chris Carson is injured, will you have the run game to be able to grind the clock down to keep the opposition's offense off the field? And I'm kind of thinking maybe you mightn't. You know what I mean, mate?
Well, I'll go with the majority. So it sounds like you've all put the Seahawks bottom. So I'll take that. Oh, and Jordan's left.
We've buffed him enough. He's gone.
I did not do that from the internet. What's your point? Something about defense, wasn't it?
Yeah, if you've got a bad defense, you want to have a really good run game. Because if you're building up a lead, you want to have a run game you can rely on to grind the clock down, to keep the other team's offense off the field and to keep your defense off the field. And I think that Chris Carson, if he gets injured, and he has had injury history in his past, I just think who's going to, even if you do build up a touchdown lead and you've got 6 or 7 minutes going into the fourth quarter, who's going to be the running back? Who's going to carry the ball and keep the chains going so you can bring that clock deep down in under the 2-minute warning? You need to have these long, sustained drives when you've got a really poor defense. But your offense is built really high-powered for these kind of quick score kind of things. You know what I mean? I've got enough questions about the Seahawks to think it's going to be fascinating how it plays out, but I'm worried for them.
Yeah.
I think that's a fair summary. So that's what we've got. We've got the 49ers winning the division, which terrifies me. The Rams come in second. I presume we think they're going to make the playoffs too. Cardinals in third, and Seahawks finishing bottom of the division. That should get Twitter going.
I think, and that's fine as long as New York Giants don't win the East.
Well, we didn't have them winning the East, I don't think. So I think you're safe there. I think we had Washington winning the East. Yeah, just a small bit of NFC West breaking news, which I saw halfway through this podcast. It was actually announced beforehand, so I should have had it for my own summary. But Fred Warner has re-signed with the 49ers on a 5-year, $95 million deal, which makes him the highest paid linebacker in football by annual average by $1 million a year over Wagner. I think it's probably Wagner that's on 18. So interesting bit of news there. Definitely another one of the core kind of sticking around for a while. D'Amico Ryan's our new DC. Will be loving that news. So just a nice little bump going into the preseason. But that's the end of our division wrap ups. We obviously had 8 to do. We did 7 very quickly, and then the 8th one took a bit longer. Through a variety of reasons, one of which was England actually being quite good at football a few times, which meant that it was pointless recording on Mondays because you would have all been watching the football. But hopefully you've enjoyed it. We will be back next week. I don't actually know what our topic's going to be yet. Have we hit on a topic? Were we going to do breakout players next week? I feel like that was one of the suggestions that was knocking around.
Yeah, I think we'll probably do offensive breakout players. We'll pick one each, and we'll pound the table for who we think will be an offensive breakout player next game for reasons why.
But not from our own team was the caveat, wasn't it?
Yeah, you can't pick a player from your own franchise.
Right, so we have to pick an offensive breakout player that doesn't play for one of our teams.
Yeah.
Which is fine for me because we got none on the radars. Maybe more.
I was going to say it would be harder for some of us than others anyway, so that's probably fair enough. So we'll be back next week. Well, hopefully next week doing that, probably at our regular time, which is usually Mondays, although Wednesday seems to have become a popular day now as well. But nonetheless, hopefully you've enjoyed what we've been doing. Do follow us on the socials at Third Short Pod, is it? Third and Short? I can never bloody remember. Have you got it, Bones? I'm not sure. I'm going to remember that one day, I swear to God. Anyway, hopefully you've enjoyed the content we've been outputting. I really like what we've been doing the last few weeks, but this is actually the first one for about 3 weeks. Yeah, there we go. At Third Short Pod on the socials. Give us a follow. You'll get notified about the upcoming episodes. And let's face it, you need it because we don't keep a regular schedule. So, you need all the help you can get, really.
Found it in the end.
Hopefully you've enjoyed yourselves watching it. We've certainly enjoyed doing it. And, we'll see you again next week.
Ciao.
See you later.